this session is going to 1 hour, even though meant to take time, but life. And please, someone else should confirm if you can hear me. Someone else should confirm if you can hear me. I want to be sure if that's from my hand or from your hand, because I think everything is working perfectly according to what I have here. So everything seems to be perfect. So let's just go ahead. So welcome to tonight's session. And okay, yes, you can hear me now. Okay, that's cool. So tonight's session, brand and you. And I said this YouTube live session is a session for creative and brand designers. So majority of the things that I have in here are things that you've probably heard before, but they are stuff that you've not really taken to the heart. You've not really taken it to heart. So I'm just going to go over them. And like I said, we're going to be talking about how you can build your personal brand as a designer beyond your design skill itself. So most of the times, we designers, we are used to the belief system that for you to be a very good designer, you need to learn how to design. Yes, that's the core of it, but it goes beyond all of that. So it goes beyond just knowing how to design. It goes beyond that. There are actually a lot of things that goes down when it comes to building a brand for yourself as a designer. So that's and more are the things that we're going to be looking at in today's session. And I'm also going to urge you that you try as much as possible to wait to the end of this session, because I have a bonus coming up for you. So for those of us on IG, you can join us live. Just go ahead to my YouTube channel. You're going to find the live video there, so you can join us and join the chat as well. So because I'm going to be sharing a lot of things here and in the chat session as well, I might not be able to do that with the Instagram because of trying to manage both sides. So I might not be able to do that. So you can just go on my YouTube and join as well. So welcome everyone. I can see Olapel here. I can see Olawale, my guy, and I can see Ayomide as well. Ayomide Samuel, welcome. So without any further ado, let's just jump straight into what we have for today. So the introduction. Now, let me talk about what we are here for basically. Let me just tell us why we are here exactly. So like I said before, we are here to learn about how we can build our brand as a designer beyond our design skills itself. So we're going to learn so many things that we actually do not know, or things that we've actually not fixed our mind into. So we're going to learn all of those things, and I'm going to be sharing some secrets with you. And these secrets are even personal secrets. They are things that are even personal to me myself. I'm going to share them with you so that you learn from all of this and you apply. Before we go ahead, let me go ahead to say this. Let me say this first before we go ahead. I'm used to telling people, and I do it all of the time. I tell people that whenever you are learning, it is not just enough for you to learn if you don't implement. So if you know that you're not going to implement all of these things that is going to be discussed here, let me just tell you the truth then. It's a total waste of time for you if you are here on this call. Like, it's a total waste of time if you are not planning to implement all of the things that you're going to take away from tonight's session. So I'm just going to urge you to try as much as possible to take action plans, to write down your action plans and implement all of them. So don't just write them down and keep them somewhere. This is not like a regular session that you just write things down and keep them and you don't get to use it. So try as much as possible to implement whatever you're being taught here. So let's go straight into what we have. So I divided our discussion tonight into 4, and trust me, I just want to follow through everything here. The way I did it in a kind of creative and a kind of weird way. So just to help us connect better. I don't want it to look like the professional settings that we know, where they tell you this is what you do, like all of those things. So I want you to be able to connect well with you. I want you to connect well with everything that we're doing here today. So I grouped them into 4. We have first things first, where we're going to talk about your design skill. I'll talk about your portfolio, and I'll talk about your communication skill. Then we'll move over to where we'll talk about the toughest times. That's where I'm going to talk about your sacrifices as a creative or brand designer. And I'm also going to talk about the downtimes. And so when we get there, you just get to understand better Also, we're moving to the third phase where we're going to go pro. So this is where we're going to talk about professional stuff. But I want you to follow through everything without skipping one. I want you to follow through everything without skipping one. So for the third session, we're going to go pro, where we're going to talk about pricing structure. We're going to talk about the growth process. We're going to talk about our seasons as well. And the last session is we're going to talk about the implementation. So how do we go about all of this information that we have now? And we're going to take questions and the extras as well, where I'm going to share my bonus with you. And that will be all for tonight. So without any further ado, we already have 6 minutes gone out of our time. So let's just proceed. We have 6 minutes gone. So first things first, let's talk about your design skill. So I wrote down some things here which I'm going to explain. So I just wrote them down. I'm going to read them, and I'm also going to explain as well. So I wrote down here that your design skill is the core of whoever you are, either as a brand or creative designer. And it is important for you to know that as a designer, that you are first recognized as one because of your design skill. So this one is straightforward and simple. You cannot call yourself a designer if you don't have a design skill. So first, you need to have the skill before you can call yourself a designer. And you can see what I wrote here in bold. I wrote that you are not even one of us since you have no design skill. So if you have no design skill, you cannot even call yourself a designer in the first place. So I guess that's very simple, and that is much understandable. It's easy for us to, like, you understand what I'm saying, because if you don't have the skill, then you are not one of us. So whatever you do, just ensure that you are so good at your design craft first of all, before you start furthering on every other thing. So every other thing is going to follow. And because no matter what strategy you put in place, you'll come back crashing on the ground. And that is just the truth. So for the fact that you don't have a design skill, whatever we're going to be talking about here today might not, I will not say will not work for you, because I discovered that it actually works for some people. They don't have this design skill, that they are not so good at their craft, but some way or somehow they find themselves doing well in the design space. But you'd count maybe 1 out of a million. So it is important that you have the skill. So the skill is the very first thing, because that is your core as a designer. You cannot call yourself a designer since you don't have the skill. So it is very important that you get the design skill. I used to tell people that there is more to being a designer than just learning, taking few courses, and you feel like, oh, I already know a lot, and you're out there, you launch out or as a designer already. You're already taking gigs from people claiming to be a designer. You're looking for bigger gigs. Funny how that even happens most of the times. We're looking for bigger gigs, and sometimes we get to the point where we start complaining, oh, I'm not even getting paid well. So the first thing is, how is your design skill? That's the first question that you should ask yourself. How is my design skill? So let me proceed to your portfolio, which is the second thing I'm going to dwell on tonight. So now, what is the purpose of having a design skill when you don't even have the portfolio? So now, what is the importance of this portfolio? You know, it is easier for you to say, oh, I'm a designer. It is easy for you to say it by mouth, to tell people that I'm a designer. So I'm a brand designer, or I'm a creative designer. I've done this, I've done that. Yes. Just like Burna Boy said, he said, you go explain tire, no evidence. And that is why I wrote it here in bold, that I wrote it very big. You go explain tire, no evidence. So it is always good when you have a portfolio. As a designer, whatever field you find yourself, whatever niche as a designer you find yourself, whether you're a creative designer, you're a brand designer, or industrial designer, whatever it is you do, it is always good that you have a portfolio of work, because most of the times people will engage you, people will ask you, you might even be referred by somebody for a gig, but you find out that you can't actually prove yourself, because you don't have a portfolio, you don't have like an evidence to show. So I wrote here now that it is important for you to know that your portfolio is just as important as your design skill. Yes, so I wrote it is just as important as your design skill, and that is because it's going to be the only evidence that you have to prove to people that you are actually skilled. Your portfolio is going to be the only evidence that you have to show people to let them know that you are skilled indeed. So, and no one actually has the time to hold long conversations with you and try to discuss their projects if they haven't gone through your portfolio first. So most of the times when you see people reach out to you and they tell you that, oh, hey guy, I want you to jump on this project for me and blah blah. They've actually seen your design. Is it that they have seen your design or somebody referred or somebody recommended you to them? So it is both ways. So sometimes when you see people come to you when they've not even seen your designs, maybe they come as a result of recommendation, based on recommendation from someone. But at the end of the day, you'll find out that most of those conversations used to boil down back to the first step, which is asking for your portfolio or asking for the work or things that you've done as a designer. So even when somebody is reaching out to you and they be like, oh, I want you to jump on a project, or I have this project in mind, I want to create something for a new brand that I have, but the fact that you don't even have design to show, nobody's ever going to believe that you are skilled. Now let me just give like a live scenario. Like let me give a live scenario. So there's something I found out about myself a while ago, and when I mean a while ago, I'm talking about almost 2 years now. So I discovered that for my LinkedIn page, on my LinkedIn page, I'm just trying to use this to like explain these points that I just give now. For my LinkedIn page, um, most of the times people don't get to connect with me because they don't know me and they don't get to see my work. I don't get to post it and all of these things. So I tried applying for several jobs and stuff like that. But I discovered that where I was missing out was the fact that most of the times these employers, these hiring managers will go on your LinkedIn to check what you've done without even checking your link, because like searching for the link is another thing entirely. So it means maybe they really want to check you out, but most of the times they just go to your LinkedIn and just check through your stuff and see what you've done. So my LinkedIn was really lacking behind because I don't get to post stuff. I only go there to read people's posts. I go there to like and repost and things like that. I don't share my own work. So I feel like I've been judged so many times that I was not a good designer, or I am just a designer by mouth, because they have not seen what I can do. They don't get to see what I do. And same thing on Twitter. I used to joke with my guys. I used to tell them that, oh, I don't know what's wrong. Twitter people don't. I don't think those guys like me. I have been on 87. I think it was 87 or 85 followers for the past 2 years on Twitter. Nobody was even following that 85. In fact, I don't even know how we got here. I feel it was just God that brought the 85 that brought the 85 followers that I had on Twitter as at that time. So this year I decided that, okay, let me just post more of my work rather than just repost or retweet what people say. So I did that. My first post did well. It really performed well. I had over 200 likes and like a good amount of retweets as well. So these followers started increasing, and within the period of 1 week, I grew the account from 87 followers to I think about 140 or 150 plus now. So that's just period of 1 week. I'm talking about last week, between last week and now. I grew it. I grew it to that extent. So that's to show that people don't really have time, despite the fact that I put my link in my bio and they can always check my link. Nobody's interested in doing that. They want to see things that you've done, because even personally for me, I think it's the same thing for me. If as a designer, what I want to see before I even have any conversation with you is I want to go through your work. I want to see what you've done. So from there, I can make my decision if I'm going to further the conversation or not. And the truth is that is what happens most of the times. It's not like people don't get to see your stuff. They get to see it, but they already made their decision that they are not going to work with you, or they are going to work with you before even coming to you to tell you that, oh, they have this project. Do you understand? So you go explain that no evidence if you don't have a portfolio. So your portfolio is also as important as your design skill, because how do you get to show the world that you're good at your craft if there is nothing to actually show? So the next thing is your communication skill, and I think one of my recent posts on Instagram addressed this. Communication skill for designer. We used to feel like most of the times we feel like as designers we don't need to learn all of these soft skills. But I'm going to tell you that if you're very good at communicating, now communication is very, very broad. Like it is very, very wide. It's not just the normal back and forth conversation. Like it's deeper than that. But you'll come to discover that if you know how to communicate effectively and you learn the process of communication, you'll discover that communication is going to solve a lot of stuff for you than any other thing. So now, communication can help you bag good deals. That's the truth. Communication can destroy you as a designer. Communication can tear down your project, and at the same time, communication can save you from a lot of things. Now, that is when it is done rightly. And I wrote down here that communication is a vital soft skill that every that underpins every aspect of a designer's work. So by mastering various forms of communication, you better be equipped to convey your ideas, manage expectation, and advocate for your designs, ensuring a more fulfilling career. Now let me explain this well. So I learned something which is a secret I'm going to share with you guys. So somebody reached out to me a while ago, and the person was like, "How do you go about your logo?" And I think I discussed this with some of my students that I'm taking in the logo design class. We had this conversation. I guess that was last week. I was talking about how that your communication skill is very important. So somebody reached out to me a while ago, and the person was like, "How are you able to stick to the one concept logo design?" So basically, let me just give you like a background story. Basically, so what I do is when I'm working on a design or a project like a design project, logo, brand identity project, I don't get to give the client options. So I'm not, I don't just like the idea of sharing options. So what did I do? And you know that normally a client will want you to share several options with them. So what did I do to solve all of that? What I did was I learned how to communicate better with my clients. Now, communication is not just in terms of vocabulary, what I'm saying. It's in terms of knowing the right things to say, not just not just knowing how to speak English. You can communicate in any language. So communication is not even language based. Like, it's not totally language based. Let me put it that way so you don't get to quote me wrong. It is not completely language based. So what if a client from France is reaching out to me, for instance now, and I can speak French well? It does not really guarantee that I'm going to get the work because I'm speaking French. But what is going to guarantee me is how I communicate. Now, effective communication is what is very important. So when you learn how to communicate, it helps you manage expectation. So for me, let me give you a quick secret, like I was saying before I digressed. What I do for me personally is that when I am working on a brand identity project, I carry the client along on every single step that I take. I carry them along. We communicate. I share my ideas with them. I advocate for my designs, and I manage their expectation right from communication. So I can know that, okay, this is what this client is expecting for me. I know how to go about it. I don't just go into the project assuming that I know what the client wants, because most of the times that is where we make a lot of mistake. We go into the project assuming that the client knows what we want. Like, you know what the client wants. Yes, you know, because you've gone through the brief, but there are actually some information that you never get in the brief, and that is the truth. But all of these things, you're able to unravel those unspoken or unwritten information when you communicate better with the client. I go ahead to ask a lot of questions. I get to understand their idea, their concept, what they're looking forward to, what the success of that project means to them, and stuff like that. So I now walk them through the process, take them through every single thing that I'll be sharing with them back and forth. We'll be having the conversation together. So what this does for me is that at the end of the day, when I'm presenting my logo draft, now the clients can not say no. What they can only do is, oh, let's iterate. Let's go for iteration. Okay, let's like add this. Let's remove this. Then I cannot go ahead to advise. That is where advocation comes in. Advocating for your design. That's where it comes in. So I cannot go ahead to advise and say, oh, okay, I think this idea is nice. Let's go for it. Or I don't think if we do this, it will work. Now, if communicated, the clients cannot just jump at me and say, no, I don't want this, because we went through the process together. Do you understand? We went through the process together. So it's more like we did everything together because the communication was locked and intact. So at the end of the day, whatever I am presenting to you, we both agreed on it. That's just the truth. So let me just further read what I have here. I'm trying to work with time. Yeah, 20 minutes. Oh, we spent 20 minutes already. So first, the ability to communicate your design compellingly demonstrates intelligence. And while designers may be clever and reasoned, having the ability to articulate design decision assures stakeholders they can be trusted and have the expertise necessary to complete the job. So this part I wrote down, what's it saying? It's saying that for the fact that I am able to communicate well, it's kind of bets this level of trust in the hearts of the clients. So the stakeholders can feel like, oh, this guy is good. The way you communicate alone is enough for people to judge you. Like people can judge you just from the way you communicate. A client can say, oh, this guy is good. I feel like this guy can handle my project. And trust me, personally, I have been in several situations like that. I've been with difficult clients that they tell me this is what they want and that is how it must be. And I've been able to communicate effectively with them, walking them through the process, letting them know how it is done, and advising them on what I feel should be done. Do you understand? So I'm able to communicate well. Then it now gets to a point whereby they feel like, oh, this guy can be trusted. I feel like this guy knows exactly what I want. You know what? Let me just leave him. Let me allow him do his work. So sometimes when I even present, even when I don't get to carry them along, for the fact that the communication was on point, was locked and intact, whatever I present to them, they feel like no, it's coming from the place of experience and perfection. They just in their mind feel like this guy is good, this guy is perfect. Like I used to say, even in my classes, I used to say that I have seen designers who are better than I am, like far better than like when I see their stuff, I be like, wow, only God knows when I'm going to be like this person. But when you look at how, in terms of performance, I am performing better than they are. And these are the little things that comes in. Some of them might not be good at communicating, while some of us that are not even as good as that, we can communicate well. Now, communication does a lot of things. And like I said too, that it can land you good gigs. I've seen people who are not so even skilled at their design. Like, they are not even so skilled. But when you see gigs that they land, when you see gigs that they bag, you feel like, how is this guy able to pull up all of these things? You say connection. Some will say it's connection. Now, connection without communication is even possible when you cannot even communicate. Do you understand? So you see that communication actually does so many miracles and wonders for us. So I think we've dwelt too much on communication. It's actually a lot. But we'll just proceed. We cannot stay on this. We cannot dwell on this the whole night. So now let's talk about the toughest times. And this one is going to be like, I know that some of us will be able to relate at some point, and some of us would learn so many valuable things from this part. And because I'm just going to be truthful with you, I'm just going to tell you how things are, so that you don't get to pressure yourself too much, or so that when you get to the point where you are overworking yourself or overdoing, or maybe you are out of the track, you can always call yourself back. So let's get into it. The first thing is that sacrifices must be made. So I added a picture of Kanayo. I don't know, some of us might be familiar with him. So what sacrifice is this guy actually talking about? So you might want to ask me, what sacrifice am I actually talking about? So there are a lot of sacrifices that comes into building a brand for yourself, building a name for yourself as a creative or brand designer. There are a lot of sacrifices to be made. That is just the truth. There are so many sacrifices to be made. And I'm just going to talk about all of this things. So there are so many sacrifices. Like I said, I cannot actually spell them out. One after the other. But the truth is, sacrifices must be made. There are times whereby I find myself in a position whereby I am not making anything. Now, I'm not saying not making anything, that nothing is coming in, but I mean not making as I expected. Even at the moment, I'm not making as much as I want to, or as much as I expect, but it is better. Like, it's kind of better than the way it was back then. So there are a lot of sacrifices that need to be made. Now, one of the sacrifices I made I'm really enjoying today is that back then when I started working on design, I was not focusing on what I was going to get. That's in terms of monetary value, the pay and things like that. I was focused on just pushing out good stuff, pushing out good designs. I was just interested in pushing out good designs. I was more focused on getting the skill itself, knowing the skill to a very good level. That is why most of the times when I tell people that I've been designing for over 7 to 8 years now, is this the 7 years? I think it's about 8 years now. I've been designing for 8 years now. They're always surprised. They'll be like, 8 years and we don't even know you and all of those things. Yes, you don't know me because a huge sum of those years was the period where I was actually sacrificing a lot. I took my time to learn. So the time I started pushing out design, even though when I look back on those designs now, I just laugh and I feel like, is it me that made all of this rubbish? But those days, those days, the design I made, back then were 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 top notch. Like, were top notch. So someone is asking if this class is recorded. It is actually recorded. It is YouTube live, as you can see. So don't worry, it's recorded. It's 100% recorded. So you're covered. So those days, the design I was pushing out, when I started pushing out designs, and I started like bidding for jobs, it was the best as at that time. I was not so sure, but I think as at the time I started designing on my campus, I would say I was one of the best designers on campus, because like I rose like very fast. I rose very fast, and I was able to do all of that. I was able to scale up that fast was because I had the skill already. I had the design skill already. I had everything that it takes to be a designer as at then. Even though I was not so good with the business part of it, which I really suffered. Like I really suffered on that part, but I give my time, I give myself into learning well. So sacrifices must be made. I see a lot of designers that are even still up and coming. Myself, I am up and coming, but I see quite a number of designers who are not even good. Like, now, let me not even cover, let me not even just try to mice words. They are not even good. When I see their designs, like, it is better you don't even. When I see the design, maybe they create posters for church and stuff like that. I feel like it is better the church does not even use poster. Let them just go out with maybe megaphones and start telling people about their programs rather than making that poster and paying for it. First of all, paying for that trash. So we're always quick to push ourselves out, and you see people. Okay, there was a particular time. Let me just joke a little bit. There's a particular time I reached out to a designer. I was like, oh, I wanted you to. I don't know if you can work on social media designs for me. This was about, I think, a year or 2 years ago. I was like, if you can be handling social media designs for me, and what's like your rates? As at then, I'm not gonna tell you how much I was charging then. So this designer gave me about times six of what I was charging. In my mind, I was like, this same guy times six of what I am charging. Now, it is possible that he might have been receiving that, but I was just looking at it from the standpoint of his design, and truthfully, this guy was not. He was okay, but not even as good as I am. So I was wondering that how are you able to pull up all of these figures? How are you able to pull up all of these figures? Like, are you just saying the figure because you feel like, oh, Prince Dynamics is a big guy, you can afford to pay it, or what? So it's just funny. A lot of sacrifices need to be made. So it is good that you give yourself into learning. So I can see a question here. Let me just go through that. Cynthia is asking that was learning included in this year's. I'm going to tell you that learning does not end. And if I am to like put like a duration of my learning period, I would say all through my days on campus, I gave myself into learning. So I spent about 5 years and more on campus. Okay, let me not say more, because the more of it, I had extra year in school. So I was sitting down to just focus on getting out of campus. I was not doing anything. But 5 good years of my life on campus, I gave myself into design. Like, I gave it my all. I was not looking at how much I could make. Then even though money was coming in like good, like not that good, like little sum was coming in, but I gave myself into learn. And I can even tell you that there were times whereby I'll be at home working then with my parents. My dad would be like, why are you working on something that's not bringing money for you? Instead of you to just work on my project so that I can pay you for it. It used to hurt me because I was learning After Effects, I was learning Premiere Pro, I was learning everything at the same time. Now I'm not advising that. Not everybody have the grace and strength for that or the capacity for that. But I was giving myself into learning. My dad was always wondering, what is this guy working on? I always have one project or the other to work on. It's not like I was getting job, but I was learning. So let me just proceed. We are already dwelling too much on it. We are 30 minutes beyond the time. So sacrifices must be made. If you're not ready to make sacrifices, just know that you are not ready to go anywhere. Now look at this image of Kanayo. Now, when we see movies of Kanayo, you see that, okay, there was a time that he was a pauper, he was poor, blah blah blah. But the guy made sacrifices. They were telling him to bring 10 human that you can kill for this ritual that you're about to do and stuff like that. But those things aside, now I'm not saying you're gonna keep it, but I'm just trying to explain so that you can understand. He had to go through a process whereby it was not so comfortable for him. It was not so comfortable for him, even if it was comfortable according to the movies. But it was not easy for him to get those people. at the end of the day. So sacrifice must be made. Let us not dwell too much on that. I cannot overemphasize it. So now the downtimes. Let's talk about the downtimes. And this time I'm going to speaking about seasons. I'm going to speaking about the seasons. So there are actually two seasons. Um, there are times whereby, okay, let me not even talk about. Let me just dwell on this. So I'm not going to delve too much. I'm not going to talk too much on this because I just want to make it very fast. So now the downtimes are times whereby it is looking like nothing is happening. And the truth is, when you see now, let's not talk about design now. Let's not talk about the creative space. Let us just generalize for everybody. When you see great people, just take your time to ask them or go through their stories, read their stories. You discover that there were so many downtimes for them. Like downtimes. Now, when I'm saying downtimes, I do not mean maybe there was no finance or money wasn't coming in. Yes, though that's like 60% of the time, like 60% a part of the downtimes, because when you're not making money, it's part of it's your first downtime. And somebody said something about us in Nigeria. He said, if a Nigerian is telling you he's depressed, just check very well. The person is broke. It's not like the person is actually depressed. It's just that the person is broke. But that's a lighten up, just to lighten up the mood. So there are times whereby you will just be stagnant. It will look as if you are just in a position. There's no progress. You are repeating the same cycle over and over again. For 5 good years of my life, I was like that. I was doing the same thing over and over again. Nothing was coming forth. There was no progress. Not like I wasn't making progress. My design was getting better. But now, when it comes to finance, like nothing was changing. And even it got to a point whereby in my creative space, my design space, I got stuck. Like I could not go beyond what I was doing. Now, for those of you that have known me for about 5-6 years now, you know that initially I was just a creative designer. What I do is creative designs. When I try to do logos, it's always crazy because it's not always nice at all. Like I don't even used to, even me myself, I don't like it. So how much more the client? I have seen so many logos that I've done that I cannot even show it to the world. I still stumbled on one a while ago, and I was like, man, I deleted it off. So I was more of a creative designer, even though I was not so good with my creative designs, but I was more of that. I could not scale, I could not move. So there'll be times whereby it will look as if you're stagnant, you're in the same position, nothing seems to be working. But the truth is, this downtime is also a part of your process to becoming that person that you want to become. And that is just the truth. I'm not going to dwell too much on this. Let's just go. So now, let's go pro. Let's talk about the professional things. And I know that to an extent, these are some of the things that some of us are looking forward to. These are the things that we're looking forward to in tonight's session, which we're just going to go ahead and discuss now, because I know some of us want us to talk about pricing and all of these things. But I feel like it was just important for us to talk about everything that I just spoke about now, so that you understand that everything in this life is a process. Nothing happens overnight. Just like a friend of mine said, if you put ingredient of food on the table and you come back in under 5 minutes and you just discover that the food has prepared itself, won't you run away? So process is just highlighting the importance of process. Nothing happens, like you can't build a house overnight. Wait, is that actually correct? Because I saw one video where they said they actually built a house overnight. But you get my point. So let's just go pro. So now, the growth process. I'm just going to be picking. I wrote 4 things down here, and I'm just going to pick them and talk about it now. So number 1, don't be stagnant. Find a way to grow. Now, initially in the previous section, I was talking about how that there's a downtime where you'd be stagnant, and it will look as if nothing is working or you're not making any progress at all. But try as much as possible to fight yourself out of that. Don't be stagnant. Find a way to grow. So I was talking about how that I was formerly a creative designer and not a brand designer, even though I'm still a creative designer, because I don't think there's any creative project that I can't jump on now. And sometimes I still play around. It's just that I want to be known for what I am known for. You get? Wally said those logos were nice. Wally knows how this logo used to look like them, but you will say it is nice because it was back then. But now you cannot say they are nice. So That's just the truth of it. So now let's come back to this. So the growth process. Now, don't be stagnant. Find a way to grow. Find every, like I am saying this again, find every means to grow. Find every means to grow. Don't just be stagnant. When you find yourself in a position where it looks as if nothing seems to be working, that is a sign for you to forge ahead. Let me explain how life works to you. Now, this is even beyond design. There's a time where you'll be in a state where you are not comfortable. Now, you'd walk into a process, like you start a process, a journey that will not be that easy. Then you get into a state of fulfillment. Now, that fulfillment can only last for a period of time before you start feeling uncomfortable. So that's fulfillment state. So let me put it in a more simpler way. There's a state that you are where you feel fulfilled at first. Then the next, you grow from that phase into a phase where you feel uncomfortable. It feels like nothing is working. Then you now go through a journey. You journey through a process of fulfillment again to another level. You get to that level, you'll be happy, you celebrate your progress, you celebrate your win. Then after a period of time, you get to a point whereby you no longer feel comfortable again. And that is just how the human lifestyle is. The human life cycle is wired. That is why, as human beings, we can never be satisfied. You wonder why the likes of Dangote, the likes of Mark Zuckerberg, the like of Elon Musk, why are they always trying to innovate? Are they not okay with the money that they have with them? But the truth is, as human beings, we can never be satisfied. Even when they are okay with money, they're not okay idea-wise. They want to do more stuff. Do you get? They want to do more stuff. So all of those things is what makes us human beings. When you get to a point whereby you don't want to do anything more, you start dying. That's the truth. That is the time where you start dying. And my mom used to say something back then, and she still used to say it now. She says that the only thing that can satisfy us as a human being is death. It is only death that will come and we'll just be satisfied. Nobody's complaining. You are not complaining because obviously you're dead, so you can't even complain. But when you are alive, like, you still want to do stuff. You still want to do stuff. Even the old ones that they've done a lot, that they've achieved a lot, even at the age of 100, they still want to wake up the next morning and eat and sit down with their grandchildren. That means they are not satisfied. So let's not talk about that. Let's move past that. So don't be stagnant. Christopher is saying I should call his name. So don't be stagnant. Find a way to grow. So be your own agent of exposure. Now, most of us as designers, we're falling into the trap of where people offer us exposure for our work. Now, I'm not going to talk about that, and I'm not even here for that. Like, I'm not even here for that tonight. I don't want to talk about people that want to give you exposure, because there are two ways to it. Now, let me talk about it a little bit. There was a time whereby people offered me exposure. As much as you attend tech events and people say, don't take exposure, I took a lot of exposure. And that exposure had its own disadvantages because it affected a lot of things. And at the same time, it had its own advantage. It helped me because there were times that I jumped on voluntary, like on projects that was just for exposure, and it kind of shoot me into another level of something that was much more better. I've done so many exposure stuff that even big ones that I've done some big stuff that were just for exposure, no pay. Like, they were just for exposure. There's something I want to talk about now, but I'll just leave it so it does not look as if I'm trying to shade anybody. But I'm not trying to shade anybody, but it's just the truth. I have attended live events. I've attended live programs that I just went there because I was just pumped. I just wanted to do it, and all of those things helped me. Now, for those of us that are familiar with Harvesters, so Harvesters have this skill acquisition program they used to do. So I was invited to Ikeja, Harvesters Ikeja, to teach graphic design, and I taught over 200 persons graphic design. I introduced them to graphic design and the space itself. So it was not a paid stuff. That one was church, obviously. So, but they did us well. Like, they treated us like kings, but there was no pay attached to it. So I got the opportunity. I was invited again later for the headquarters. That was in Bagada, but I could not attend that one. I could not attend that because I was not available at that time. But I'll tell you that those little things that I did for exposure gave me platforms. Now, because of what I did at Ikeja, the news got to the headquarters, and the headquarters invited me again to be the facilitator for their graphic design. And that alone brought me enough, like, good numbers of students, and aside from that, he also landed me good gigs that I've done in my life. So you see that it is kind of somehow. So let's not talk about it. Be your own agent of exposure. What do I mean by being your own agent of exposure? Be your own push. Push yourself. Nobody's going to push you. That's the truth. People can try to push you, but as much as you push, okay, let me use the scenario of a car. You have a car that you parked it already. You already used the handbrake, you parked it, and you're trying to push it. The car is not ready to push. It's not ready to move itself. So obviously, no matter how you try to push it, will not move. Except you release the handbrake, release it from park, and you put it in free before you can be able to push it freely. Do you understand? So be your own agent of exposure. Push yourself. Push yourself. Push yourself because you want something better for yourself. And that is one of the things I'm grateful for myself personally. I was able to push myself. I was my own agent of exposure. I told myself, bro, let me expose you. I'm going to expose you to the world. Also, to be like one, you should think and act like one. To be like one, you have to think and act like one. So basically, I just wrote this because I feel like a number of times we feel like, oh, this is what I want to do. When you're trying to be like somebody, or when you're trying to reach a particular position, or you're trying to achieve something for yourself, it is always good that you try as much as possible to act like what you want to become. Now, some people might come and say, oh, this is all this Christian stuff. They're just trying to preach Jesus Christ to us. However you take it is fine. However you take it. But it is just the truth, and that is just how the world runs. You cannot become what you can't even act like. Now, what I do most of the times, let me just give you a scenario, and which is actually true. So what I do most of the times is when I want to work on a gig, or I just sit down sometimes and I imagine myself as one of the best designers in Nigeria and the world at large, and I put myself in a position of earning well. What am I going to do? What kind of car am I going to drive? Sometimes, even when I'm walking on my street, I don't have a car at the moment. Sometimes when I'm walking on the street, in my mind, I am driving. So the way I walk on my street, I pass, like, I try to find the best or comfortable place to walk on in the street. I imagine myself driving my car, so I don't just want to drive my car anyhow and get it damaged. So in my mind, I am driving, I'm relaxed, steering my wheel, the steering with just one hand, and I'm vibing to music that nobody's playing. So I picture myself in all of those things, and there are times where I picture myself in this position that I am today. And eventually I got here because I was able to act like one. So at the point I started thinking like one. I started asking myself, oh, by the time I'm so and so, how am I expected to act? How am I expected to behave? What am I expected to do? And I started doing those things, and it helped me. Now, the last one here is find the right community of people. Find the right community of people. I'm not going to talk too much about that. Find the right community of people. If you are in a place where you can't even find one or two persons that have the same dreams and passion like yourself, you just be there. You just be stagnant. You just be there. So find the right community. Let's move on. I think we're spending so much time on this already. So now let's talk about pricing structure. I know that quite a number of us are expecting that I am going to say, okay, this is the amount you should charge. And the truth is, and this is what most people will not tell you, there's actually no fixed price for whatever you're charging. Now, you can charge $10,000, and there are some people that are charging $1 million. And you're doing the same thing. There's somebody I like. There's a big designer I like. So I told myself, I decided to, just go through one of their projects. And I was like, I would have even done it better. In fact, I would have even delivered more on this project. Not from the place of boasting, because you need to appreciate people that are ahead of you so you can be like them. But when I check the project, it's what I do. Then why am I not able to charge this amount? But I'm going to let you on some truth. Now, you can't charge what you are not worth. You can't charge what you are not worth. If you are not worth it, you can't charge it. Do you get? Now, when I'm talking about what, myself personally, now I'm not talking about what am I worth? I'm talking about what is my craft worth? What is my project? What is my craft, my skill, my level of skill? What is it worth? Can I actually command $10,000? Okay, so now, personally for me, I'm just gonna be sincere with you. Personally for me, I don't think at the moment, I can comfortably charge $100,000 for a project. Like I've not even seen myself there yet. And the funny thing is, now this is not even me cursing myself, but the funny thing is, as long as I I feel like my project is not worth that, or I just feel like, okay, what I'm doing now is not even up to that. Trust me, I'll never be able to charge that amount. But it's until when my project, I feel like this project is worth it. And now it's not just from the place of feeling, it's from the place of your skill itself. You're so certain that this is what so and so amount. And people can attest to it, not just you, because sometimes we have our own motivator, we motivate ourselves and we eventually put ourselves in problem. But people know that, oh, this thing is actually worth more than this, then you can charge. But you can't charge what you're not worth. So in other words, you charge what your project, what your skill is worth. Now, there is no right way to pricing, but pricing structure should be built based on your value of your work and the result generated. And that is one thing I do for me personally, especially when it comes to brand designs. After communicating, after the what's it called, discovery session and all of those things, I I get to look at the results that's going to be generated and what the result is going to feel, how you're going to feel about the results. Then I base my pricing structure. I base my pricing on that, on the value of the work I am giving you and the result generated. As much as people will say, oh, Prince is a good designer, I love all his logos. There are some logos that they are good, but maybe like the style guide and the things that encompasses that project is not as deep as another logo that you find again that I did even myself, because the value of work, the effort that was put into those projects differs from each other. So somebody can come to me and tell me, okay, I want to work on a project, this is what I want to do, and I can say, oh, you know what, bring $1 million. And someone else can come with the same project, but because of what I feel like, okay, this is what this project needs, or this is what this project needs, and this is how the result is going to look like, I can say, okay, you know what, bring $100,000. I've never charged this amount I'm mentioning, so don't go and think that's what I'm charging. I'll get there, I will also get there. Now, the structure of pricing itself is a process. You don't just wake up one day and say, you know what, I want to charge this amount. Now, this might sound somehow to some of us, but it is just the truth. Personally, for myself, okay, there was a time that I increased my price, like I increased my rate, and I increased it by how many percent? This is not 100%. If I'm to say it, I increased it by, let's say about 2,000%. I just woke up one morning and I increased it. Now, I was able to do that because I know what I can do. Like, I know my level of skill. I know I can tell that this is my level of expertise. I can tell that to this extent, okay, when it comes to this particular niche, I am so good at it. Like, this one is not me just even boasting unnecessarily, but I'm boasting from the place of certainty. Like, I am so sure. I am very, very sure that this is what I can do. So I increased the fee. I tried it with the first person, it didn't work. The second person didn't work. No, I tried with the first person. The first person I tried it with, I just called a sum. I was like, this is what I want to take. And the person was like, oh, can you take a little sum out of it for me? And I did that. And the person was like, okay. I was like, eh? Okay, just like that. Like, I'm talking about 2,000% incremental. And the person was like, it's fine. And trust me, that was the least I ever did it. Like, that was the least. From that moment, that was the least I did. So it's a process. Like I said, I've not gotten to the point where I can say I want to charge $100,000. But I know that by God's grace, very soon, I'm going to charge such amount. So it's a process. It's not just something that is actually dependent on a lot of things. On your skill, it's dependent on your results, it's dependent on how much you've grown yourself, it's dependent on how much you put yourself out there too as well. It's also important, and it is based on all of these things. So we have less than 10 minutes. Let's just go. Now let's talk about the seasons. We have 2 seasons that I highlighted here, and we have the development and the implementation season. Now the development season is the season where you develop yourself, as the name implies, just that simple, where you take your time to develop yourself. And it is a process that you should not skip, because when you skip it, trust me, it works in such a way that you have to go back to it. You cannot just skip it. Now, let me give you a gist. Let me tell you how this thing works. While I was on campus, okay, so for those of us that know me, I studied fisheries and aquatic biology on campus. In my 200 level, we're taught like some species of fishes, and they taught us about fishes and their names and stuff like that. Now, I am not saying this for us to joke, but I'm saying it for you to understand how it was. I did not learn the names of those fishes when I was in 200 level. It affected me during my exams. Like, I narrowly escaped it at some point. But I can tell you, till date, when I see some of those fishes, as simple as they are, sometimes I cannot really say this is the name. So, what am I saying? There are processes that you cannot skip. Let me just joke a little bit. So, I met a zoology student a while ago while I was staying on the island. I met a zoology student, and we saw a particular species of fish, and I was like, "Oh, see this fish." I called it by the scientific name. She was like, "No, that's not it. It is so and so." And I was like, "Oh." Now, whether she was right or not, I don't know, because me myself, I don't know. I'm not so sure. So the development stage is a stage that you cannot skip. You should not skip. You should never skip it. You should never skip it. So it's a phase whereby it's more like your cave of Adulam, the place where you build yourself, where you develop your skill, develop your communication skill, your soft skills, and everything that you need to know. Then implementation. After you've learned all of these things, it is now time for you to start putting those structures in place. Because what is the essence of I think I lost it for a moment. Okay. I kind of lost it for a moment. So now, when I resumed to that workplace during my interview and everything, that was when I got to know that, man, I know a lot of things. I was this very skill. Like, speaking of the skill, I knew I was good. So I went there with the confidence that I know I'm good, but I was not so sure of of other aspects. But when I got there, was when I discovered that, man, I actually know a lot. There are so many things that I know. And I will tell you that my interview process was very, very simple. Most of the times, let me explain the process for you. Most of the times, after the interview, they'll tell you that, okay, we'll reach out to the HR. She took me to the boardroom, and she was like, okay, let's talk about your pay and when you resume. So this is blah, blah, blah. This is how much we're willing to give you. You don't have to work every day, blah, blah, blah. So this is when you're coming, we're getting a MacBook, blah, 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 blah. And that was it. We finalized the deal. Like, it was that easy. It was that simple. Because she also perceived my value. She knew that this guy knows a lot. So, action. And I was able to do that as a result of action. So, take actions. It is very important. Take actions. Don't just hoard all of this knowledge that you know. Don't just hoard everything. You need to take actions. Now, I think it's time for questions. If you have questions, just go ahead and drop them in the chat box. In the chat box, I don't know. I think the timing is kind of different because the questions used to come in late. I think the way I'm looking at it now, I don't know. But okay, well, if you have questions, just go ahead and drop them here. So I'm going to spare the next 5-10 minutes for questions. 5-10 minutes for questions. So if you have questions, just go ahead and drop them in the chat. So just go ahead and drop them. Okay. I think someone has a question here. So Audrey's asking that, how do I know I'm due for a season? What a very nice question. How do you know that you're due in a particular season? Okay, so I cannot specifically say that this is how you know that this is the season that's like this is how you know that, okay, I think I'm done with this particular season. Yes, and that's what I'm trying to explain. Yeah, I got you already. Moving from the learning phase to the implementation. Yes, I understand. So you will get to a point whereby it will come most of the times for me personally. It came as a nudging, and I have tested myself. Now, that testing is also important. I've tested myself. I have been in situations whereby I needed to like do something. So from experiences like that, my conversation with people, my relationship with clients, conversations with top designers and maybe younger designers, I discovered that I knew a lot. Now, I was talking about that place of my workplace, right? It's also a part of it. At the time that I applied for that job, I think that was still my development state. It was when I got there that I knew that, oh, I know a lot. I think I know a lot. And I got the job. From then, I was like, oh, I think this is the time for me to implement. So most of the times, it comes in different form. It comes in different form for people. But for me, it came in the place of nudging, knowing that, yes, I actually know a lot. And not just self-acclaimed, not just me saying I know a lot. There's so many testifiers around it. People were telling me that, oh, this is good. I got feedbacks from clients. I had conversations with people that are even bigger than me and actually do well. So I think it's time for me to implement all of these things. It's time for me to move to the implementation stage. So it comes in different form for people. And now I think there's something I didn't had. When it comes to implementation, you don't just pause on your development and start implementing. You don't just pause on your development and start implementing. Both of them work hand in hand. So your development phase, like I said, is the time that you start building and you start testing. For those of us that work with tech companies or we understand the life cycle of a product, you know what I'm talking about. They don't just launch a product. We have the MVP. So that MVP now, it's a kind of testing phase. They get people to test the app, test the product and see, oh, what do we need to change? Is it good enough? So they are doing both of them. As they're developing, they're implementing. So both of them work hand in hand before they now eventually push out the main product. And the sweet part of it is even after when the product is out, they don't stop development. The development will continue. And that's why you see when you're trying to open a app, for instance, you see that, oh, there's a new update, go to Apple Store to download or go to Google Play to download. That means the developments did not even end, even when they launched out. So both of them are together. They work kind of similar, but it's just that there's always a time where you can distinctly tell that, okay, yes, I feel like I'm in my implementation stage. So in the implementation stage, you just go back sometimes to develop some things and you keep developing. But there are times whereby what you need to do is to full-time develop yourself. There are times that you need full-time implementation. Now, in the process of implementation, you now had the development. So as you're implementing, as you're getting bigger, you're implementing some things. And truth is, even till now, I think I'm learning new things from people every day. I'm learning from what I see online, and I am just implementing those things. So that is just how it is. The designer on is asking, can you be my mentor? All right, you just reach out to me on Instagram. We'll talk about it. So that is just how it is now. So I guess that's the question for tonight. It's 8 p.m. already here from my end, and I guess we should end it there. But before I go, like I said I have a bonus for us. So now, I'm not very good when it comes to marketing, but I'll just say it. Okay, I think we have another question from Emmanuel. It is possible you lose them. When you lose them, let them go. When you lose them, let them go. That's just the truth. The truth is, okay, I think I didn't mention it, that the time I scaled my price, I actually lost a good number of clients, which is true. I lost them. I lost a good number of clients. But the truth is, in the long run, I discovered that the few number of clients that I have are better than all the clients I've had in my life combined. Excuse me. The few numbers of clients that I have now are better than all of them that I've had in the past combined. Talking of finance and my pay. Do you get? Now, before, initially, I used to do multiple work. Like, I used to design for creative designs for different companies. I had about 3 or 4 at the time. That was like 2-3 years ago. I had like a lot of them at the time. But what I was making is not even up to quarter of what I am able to generate on my, like, what I'm able to get on a monthly. It's not even up to quarter of what I'm able to get on a monthly basis now. And I can tell you from a standpoint that I don't even have any, should I say, any retainer and say, oh, you know what, I'm paying this amount monthly. I don't have. But I can tell you that the people I have now, when they reach out to me, whatever I'm getting now covered for those days. It covered for those days where I had so many stuff. So you will lose them. If you're losing them, it's fine. Actually want to try it. But most of the time it does not work that way. Some of them feel like, how can you just, even when they know that you are good, they feel like, how can you let them go? There are so many fish in the ocean. You will catch another one. That's just the truth. So I think we have another question here by Bolanriwa Emmanuel. He said, what is it like when you were transiting from freelance and working on site, and why? Good question. Very deep. Let me use the next 2 minutes to answer it. So while I was freelancing, it was actually nice. In fact, I enjoyed it because I get to decide when I close and when I resume myself. So back then, when my friend, I think I used to resume to to my workspace, my cubicle. Then I used to resume around 9 and 12. I'm done. Like once I'm lying down and I'm pressing my phone, nobody can tell me anything again. I'm done. But it's different now working in a corporate setting. But transiting from being a full-time freelancer to being an hybrid. Now, hybrid, I am not, I'm actually a hybrid staff. So I get to work some days and some other days I get to work from home and stuff like that. But the process was not easy for me because I lost some clients along the way, and it became stressful for me because I was not used to going out, going to work, dressing, and I didn't even have good clothes then because I was not going out. So what's the essence of even buying in the first place? So it was not that easy. But eventually I discovered that it made sense. Now when I got to a point where everything was balanced for me, I got to a point like after 6 months and about 8 months, 6 or about 8 months, I was able to balance it. So now I still freelance. Like a good amount of my income comes from my freelancing gigs and stuff like that. So I still freelance, but I've been able to balance both. And I kept on building myself. Now, building is very important. Let me just share this with us. After my 6 months, I think about 6 or 7 months, my company where I currently work, I was promoted because they felt like this guy knows more than what he's doing at the moment. I was promoted from the position of a brand designer to the position of an art director because they feel like this guy knows a lot. And John, okay. Emmanuel is saying I've been low on cash level as a good reason to switch career like UI years because I'm thinking of that. Okay, so I think somebody has also asked me this question before. Someone has also asked me before. The person was like, is it okay for me to switch career because I feel like that career is not paying me well? Okay, now let me just put this to us. Sometimes it's not just like the career is not paying you well. Sometimes it's like that. I learned product design. I learned UI. Like, oh, that was what was paying at the time when I was hearing people mention how much they are being paid as a UI UX designer. I learned it like I paid for the class. I think it took me about 2, 3 to a level. I am good with it, but I discovered that was not my problem because eventually I didn't even get a job. Not like I was looking for one, even though. But like people that reached out to me and they were like, they wanted to give me UI UX gig. It was even worse than the design I was in. Like it was even worse and it was more stressful. So I had to stick back to my brand design. But when I grew myself, I discovered that I didn't actually need to switch career. I only need to build myself in that particular skill, with that particular skill that I have, so that I can earn more and be okay. I know quite a number of brand designers that are well paid. Like they see more money than UI UX designer. And I know on the other hand, so I know some UI UX designer that are doing well better than brand designers. So it's not something that you can just really say, okay, it's a good um it's a good criteria for you to just jump into a new one. So um how has mentorship helped you and how can I secure a good mentorship out there? Okay, I think this mentorship stuff we should just talk about it. Let me just talk about it briefly. So mentorship is very important. Now, but what most of you guys call mentorship is when you see somebody that's going to be teaching you. That's where you get it wrong. And I think that's where, for me, follow my step, chat me up, let's discuss. Don't tell me to come and teach you how to do, can teach you how to do. Sometimes it's not teaching you that you need. It's just you following my process and learning to avoid the mistakes that I made. I feel like that is what mentorship is, especially in this field. So most of the times we get it wrong. We reach out to people, say, "Oh, I want to be your mentee. I want you to mentor me." Tomorrow morning, you reach out to the person, boss. How do you do this thing on Photoshop? This light effects that you put in the photo. How do you do it? That's what you call mentorship. That is not mentorship. Mentorship is deeper than all of those things. And that's just the truth. Just go and learn how to communicate. And if you're able to impress them, if you're able to communicate well with them, you get people's attention. Now, let me teach you one thing I did then, I used to do, and even I still do now. When you get people's attention, people need to see you as, I think, when it comes to this mentorship space, your mentor himself or herself they don't want burden. They don't want anybody to come and burden them. Do you get? Your mentors themselves, they don't want burden. So what I do is, for me, I offer value. I kind of help them with other things that I can do and stuff like that. I let them, I offer value. Okay, this is what I can do for you, boss. Let me be helping you with this. Don't pay me. Let me just help you with that. Those are where the sacrifice is coming. And the people like, they'll give you attention. Like, okay, just do, let's see. When you start doing that, like, this guy is good. There, you're already getting their attention. A time will come whereby you can reach out to them and say, boss, how are you even making this money? Teach me how. And they'll freely do it. But most of us are out there, hey, how can I? You want to squeeze the hell out of your mentors, but you don't want to offer anything. And that's the wrong mindset. So now, Chilex is asking about niching down. Now, niching down is good, but I would say you should niche down when, for me, I feel like the best thing for you to do when it comes to design is test all of them first before you niche down. So you know where you actually have a core strength in. I used to feel like I was one of the best creative designers once I discovered that, man, I'm not that good there. So niching down is good because it helps you focus. You don't just jump on this in from those skills that you have before you start niching down. Do you get? So niching down is not a bad idea, and at the same time it's technical because you need to think about it well before you niche down. So try as much as possible to test around first and see what works for you. Be sincere to yourself. Don't just do it because you feel like it is good. I know people who are just packaging designers. Like what they design is package designs. Like they design packages. That's what they do. They don't have time for posters. They don't have time for logos. But that is their own core, and they are paid. They are well paid for it. So just test around, understand the one where you have your core strength, and stick to it. There are some generalists. It's not bad if you're a generalist too. I don't think it's bad too. So this is the last question I'm taking. Like, this is the last question. Can I showcase the design I did for my clients while setting up my portfolio? Can I pass? So obviously you're showcasing it. So I guess that's all. Thank you very much, Bilo. Kausavile, thank you very much. All right. So like I said, I have bonus. Trust me, I was not even expecting that we'll have people attend this because I didn't push it as much as I was supposed to. But I'm just going to let it out. So I'm not trying to like talk down anybody, or I'm not trying to say go and take it. I create time to ensure that you understand it. So if you're interested, I have now decided that for those of us that are here, let me write it down, 50% off the logo design costs, and you 50. So when you apply this coupon code when you're trying to purchase, you get 50% off, and this is the link. So that is the link to purchase if you are interested. So and it's just going to be for the next 24 hours. So by this time tomorrow, it's going to be out. Like by this time tomorrow, you will not find other questions. You can always reach out to me via my Instagram and stuff like that. So okay, I think we are done. We're done for tonight. If you have any question, please do well to reach out to me via Instagram, so I'll do well to respond. Don't worry. So thank you very much, guys, for making it to tonight's class. I hope that you'd enjoy it. Drop your comments. Let me know what you learned and what you're taking out from this class and what you intend to do with it. Wonderful and blessed weekend. Thank you.